Welcome to Growing Your Team, a podcast designed for small business owners seeking to grow their company with the help of employees and contractors. Your time is limited, which means growing and leveraging teams is essential for business success. The Growing Your Team podcast is the place to learn tips and techniques designed to help you know when it's the right time to hire, how to select perfect fit team members, and how to maximize productivity while creating a positive work environment. Drawing from her 10-plus years of leadership and hiring experience, here is your host, Jamie Van Kuyk.
Hello, everyone. Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, we're talking about remote workers and remote working. Why are we talking about this today? Well, we're in the middle of the coronavirus, where just this week, schools everywhere are starting to shut down. Businesses are starting to shut down. People are really starting to push work from home if possible. And for you and your business, you might be impacted in multiple ways here. Maybe you're saying, thank goodness my office is at home. Every team member I have works out of their own house. We're not impacted. And that's you. Awesome. Business operations might be going as usual for you, and thank goodness. But for some of us, that might not be the case. Either we have businesses that are shutting down for the safety of ourselves, the people in our community, and our staff, or we have businesses where we are having people work from home, and this isn't our norm. Now, if you're one of the businesses that has to close doors and stop serving customers during this time, I say take this opportunity to focus on all those back-end admin tasks that you never have time to do. Yes, it's going to suck not bringing in revenue during this time, but do everything you can to keep your business moving in the right direction by doing all those things that you never have time to do. But today, we are going to talk about remote workers. So this will be great information whether you are having people work remote for the first time for you, or you're thinking about maybe in the future adding remote staff to your business, not being so location dependent and being okay, not physically seeing your employees in your place of business every day. Yes, obviously for some businesses, some of your staff might have to be in a certain location. If you're providing a physical service to a client or you're selling through a storefront, you're going to need people there. But for some of us, our entire business can be done with remote workers, or we can have some remote workers even though some of our staff has to be there serving our clients face to face. So today we're talking about the benefits of remote work and also how you can switch your mindset from thinking that you always need to be in the same location as your staff to being okay with remote workers. So let's start with this idea that workers have to be in an office location or a business location in order to be effective at their job. A lot has changed technology-wise since businesses were really developed. If you think back to the industrial revolutions and the business booms and everything, at that time, there was no internet. Even phones were not like they are today. Businesses had different ways of communicating to each other, where being in a location so you could communicate with your coworkers, so you can communicate with your boss was essential. You don't need to be in the same location to communicate with each other anymore. We have phones, we have text messages, we have the ability to do video conferencing, we have the ability to email and file share across the internet versus having to physically hand things back and forth. So a lot has changed, but for many people, the idea of what a business looks like hasn't changed. Most people still symbolize a successful business is having a physical location, even if you don't need one. So if you're debating whether remote workers is something right for your business, first thing I challenge you with is, why do you actually need to be in a location? Yes, going back, for some people in some jobs, in some roles, in some businesses, people have to be in a physical location because that's where your customers and clients are going to go to get your products and get your services. And you need people there that are going to service them. But most of the roles that can be done for most businesses do not involve a certain location. Some things involve certain security things, making sure people's documents and everything are not accessible, so you're not at a security risk. But as long as guidelines are followed, do they need to be at a certain location? Do you all need to be together? In most cases, the answer is no. A resource that I think everybody should invest in for now, trying to get through this period of time where you might have remote workers, or if you ever think about hiring remote workers in general, is the book Rework, Office Not Required. The gentleman that wrote this book, Jason Fried and David Henson, hopefully I'm pronouncing those right, also wrote the book Rework. These are two great books to help you get out of the mindset of, well, it's the way it's always been done, so it's the way it must be for my business, and really start creating a business that's around your needs and what you need and what's best for you and your clients and your workers. Things don't need to be the way it's always been done and have those sacred cows, as they sometimes say, of doing business just because that's the way they did business 100 years ago. Let's be honest. A lot has changed, and the way we do business and the way we work together can change too. We do not need to stick to the standards because it's the way it's always been done. So let's talk about some of the fears that might be holding you back from allowing your employees to work remote. One is that it'll impact your customers. And I challenge you to ask, will it really? Do your customers even know where your employees are? Do your customers know whether someone's in the office or at home? If phone calls are being answered and emails are being answered, then your customers probably really don't care if you service them in a way where they're not physically coming in to get service from you or to get products from you. There's ways you can set up now, even if your employees typically have that in-office phone number where things can be forwarded to their cell phones, or even with certain companies, that phone that they have in their office can then be plugged in at home and the number goes and travels with them. So I really want you to think, does remote work actually impact my clients, and how? Surprisingly, the answer might be it doesn't. Another thing that people worry about with remote work is kids, especially now because schools are closing for weeks at a time. And it kind of leaves you with two options. One, you can allow your employees to take the time off, but then that work's not being done. Things that could be done in your business right now aren't being done if you're just saying, take the time off, spend with your kids. And not only does this mean work's not being done that could be done remotely, it also probably means your employee is not getting paid and getting the money that they need to support their family. So instead of just saying, take the time off because your kids are here or home and then your job will be here when you can come back, might not be the best situation for you or them. But then you might be saying, but kids are going to be around. They're going to be a distraction. And I, once again, want to challenge you on this. When I was back at corporate, I was in that mindset too of if you're working from home, except on the one-off things, your kids shouldn't be around. So if you had a consistent work from home job, you needed to have something to do with your kids so they weren't a distraction during the work time. Then I started working from home. I started working from home when my daughter was 8 months old, and I was starting a job around nap time after she went to bed and everything. Summer came, and my daughter, who was then 3 at the time, was also home. So I was home and working and building a business with a child under 1 and a child that was 3. Guess what? I still got a lot done even though they were home. I learned how to give my children what they needed and give the business what it needed at the same time. Well over a year later, my husband got the opportunity in a new job to pretty much work remote whenever he wanted. Occasionally having to go in the office for meetings, but there was no regular requirement for him to go into the office. And when he started, he was like, okay, I might work from home 1 or 2 days a week, but I don't want to be distracted by the kids, so I'm going to go into the office. And I just told him, Derek, I challenge you to something. I want you to think about all the time the kids distract you when you're working from home. Make note of it. Write it down. Write down how often they distract you, how long each distraction lasts, and make note of it. Next time you're in the office, I want you to do that same thing, but with your coworkers. Anytime a coworker distracts you, write it down, and mark it down for how long until you get back to your work. You'll be surprised. And sure enough, he was. He came back and said, you know what? I get distracted more from my coworkers in the office than I do by my kids at home. So this whole notion of, well, my employees' kids are going to be home, or maybe you're starting to worry about because the contractors you work with, you're hearing that their kids are going to be home and you're afraid they're not going to be able to do work at the same level. So if you're starting to worry about this, you have to remember that people are a distraction, not just kids. So there's those conversations that go on in the office, just those little things here or there that aren't happening because you're not around your coworkers. So you're able to focus more. Some people focus better once they're at home and they're in a rhythm. It also means for some people, and this is one of the things it talks about a lot in the remote and rework book, is they might be able to put in hours outside of what they would initially traditionally work. So we're so stuck on this, a business needs to be 9 to 5, but does it really? Can our customers be served, and can we do everything that we need to do just by getting the work done and not so much thinking, okay, you have to clock in at 9 and you have to leave at 5? When we start focusing on productivity, and maybe we can say, okay, this time when you're working remote, if you work a little bit earlier in the day, great. If you need to catch up at the end of the day after the kids go to bed because the kids are home, great. If it's not impacting your customers because they're still getting the customer service that they need and expect, why does it matter? And that's something I would like to challenge business owners on, is why does the 9 to 5 matter? Once again, just like with some businesses, when people need to physically be there to serve your customers, there's other businesses where the time people are available does matter. If someone's strictly in a customer service role and going to be answering phones or answering emails or talking on chat, and you're telling your clients and customers and people come into your website that people are going to be available from certain hours to certain hours, you need to follow through on that and be available for your customers. But at the same time, there's a lot of other work that just gets done behind the scenes that doesn't matter with the hours it gets done. It matters that it gets done, and it matters that it gets done according to your expectations, but having to fit into that 9 to 5 window doesn't matter. So you can build a little bit of flexibility with your remote staff. So yes, having remote staff might not be your norm, but having remote staff now might be what you need to do in order for your business to survive these next few weeks as we're dealing with the coronavirus. And it might open your eyes that having remote staff is possible going forward. One of the benefits of having remote staff is you don't have to spend a lot of money on office space. Just the other week, I was finishing up the book Profit First, and that was one of the things he called out in the book, was he was spending all this money on an office space because having an office space was this sign of a successful business, and you had to have this impressive office. And then he realized, why am I paying for this impressive office where when he was starting his one business, it was pretty much just him and he wasn't seeing clients there. It didn't make sense to have this impressive office that really wasn't getting used in the way that it needed to be used. Yeah, if you're having customers come in and out all the time, having a great office that impresses them might be what you need. But even going back to my husband, for example, they have an office where they a lot of times have customers and clients coming in and out for meetings. So their office is geared around that, having meetings with clients. It's not geared around having their entire work staff there on site, because they don't need their entire work staff there on site every day, but they need some place to have meetings with clients and to entertain their clients. So that's what their office space is built around. And so that's one thing you can think about with remote work staff. You can start to reduce your expenses because you don't need a physical location at all, or you can do one that's a lot smaller. So remote work, it is great for a lot of businesses. It's going to help you survive at times like this when people can't come in the office. Another benefit of remote work is it allows people to kind of live their lives a little bit more. It allows workers to not have to worry about if the kids have a random day off of school, do they have to make the choice of spending the time with their kids and taking a day off of work, or doing the work that they love to do. It makes it so people have an easier time traveling. I can't tell you how many times with remote work, or even like with my employees back in the past in corporate, where they would fly out maybe someplace on a Thursday night, work remote on Friday, and then when they were done on Friday, they could start their vacation someplace So that way they had that additional time versus like trying to rush to the airport Friday after work or starting their vacation on Saturday morning. So it allows people the flexibility, which makes them happier. And when you have employees and team members that are happy with their life, they're going to be happier at work because it all impacts one another. So the things you can do to keep your employees happy is going to keep your team members on your team longer, and it's going to help you build a more successful business. So if you can, embrace remote work. I know right now it's thrown on a lot of us and we weren't ready to make this transition, but make the most of it. Figure out how to make it work for your business and see if there's things that you do now as we're going through this coronavirus time that you can continue moving forward. So you can reduce your expenses and keep your staff members happy and learn that we don't have to follow the business practices that were put in place about 100 years ago before everyone had a cell phone, before the internet, before we were able to communicate with each other without being in a physical location together. All right, that's all for today. I hope everyone stays healthy among the coronavirus spread and that you're having a wonderful week. And we'll be back on Thursday for our March bonus episode with Chris Benault.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Growing Your Team with your host, Jamie Van Kuyk. Be sure to subscribe and head on over to growingyourteam.com to connect, access the show notes, and discover more ways to hire and leverage your perfect fit team.